If you've ever, anyone out there watching, if you've ever had a moment where you had a really scary moment, maybe you're driving on the road and someone almost cuts you off and you think, oh no, and there's a flash. What happens in that moment is your brain floods your body, specifically your fight or flight response, sends a message to your adrenal glands and it goes, watch out. And now your body's flooded with this cortisol and adrenaline. And it almost feels surreal, like, wow, this is like a life-threatening moment.
Mm.
And when we're in these deeply intense moments, the only way to expel this energy is often rah. I yell, I scream, a hit, some sort of action that we complete the energy. And one of the simplest ways to see this is if you ever watch ducks on a pond. So if you've ever watched these ducks on a pond, and here they go and they fight, 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 fight. When they go away from each other, you'll watch them flap their wings really hard. And I always say they're flapping their wings to get the rest of that energy out. Though they have to get rid of it. And we need to do that too. What I've found are creative ways for us to flap our wings, essentially, like in relationships and parenting. Like, let's find a way to flap our wings so that we don't have to come at others simply because we're in this uncomfortably intense emotion.
Welcome to Empowered Kids TV, where we introduce you to the people and ideas to help you take action and create the family of your dreams. Our guest today is one of the most accomplished mental health specialists in the field of anger and emotional management. A familiar figure on TV and radio, he is also a prolific writer, a powerful communicator, and a sought-after media expert. His latest book, Walking Through Anger, was released in October of 2019. He is the creator of the Yield Theory, a powerful approach to change, combining radical compassion and conscious education for the effective treatment of anger issues. Whether it is in front of his group of violent offenders, the classroom, or in front of companies and organizations, he always brings his unique energy and unquenchable passion to his focus on teaching people about why they do what they do and how they can use knowledge about themselves and compassion for others to transform their lives. For me, his shared vision that life is short and his commitment to helping us all live to our fullest potential is truly inspirational. So please help me to welcome a man who has been helping those that society would soon rather forget to reclaim their lives with compassion, Dr. Christian Conte. Christian, welcome to Empowered Kids TV.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful introduction. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I think anger is one of the emotions that almost every family would raise their hand and say, this is an area that we need some support on, right? This is an area.
Yep.
But what I wanted to ask you was, is it that anger is more difficult to manage compared to the other emotions? Or is it that the consequences of reacting in anger is so much more vivid that we feel anger more?
I think the latter. I think that's a beautiful way to say it, because anger is an intense emotion. And as you know, as I know, because we're human beings, and I always say there are two kinds of people. There are people who have issues and dead people. So if you're alive, you've got issues. And when it comes to these emotions, we have intense emotions. Now, anxiety can be really intense. Sadness, depression can be really intense. But you hit the nail on the head, because with anger, typically it's the consequences. Because to get out of anger, we often lash out to get rid of it. But then, boom, we look at the consequences and say, oh, now the anger's gone, but I'm left with the consequences. This is one of the reasons why I always say to people, emotions come and go, but your actions simply cannot be undone.
Love that. Okay, let's dive a little deeper into helping us all understand what's happening when we get taken over by anger. When anger's, because sometimes it feels like it almost blinds you, like you lose the ability to respond in alignment to your goals or your intention. So what's really happening for us in those moments?
So if you've ever, anyone out there watching, if you've ever had a moment where you had a really scary moment, maybe you're driving on the road and someone almost cuts you off and you think, oh no, and there's a flash. What happens in that moment is your brain floods your body, specifically your fight or flight response, sends a message to your adrenal glands and it goes, watch out. And now your body's flooded with this cortisol and adrenaline, and it almost feels surreal, like, wow, this is like a life-threatening moment.
Mm.
And when we're in these deeply intense moments, the only way to expel this energy is often rah, I yell, I scream, a hit, some sort of action that we complete the energy. And one of the simplest ways to see this is if you ever watch ducks on a pond. So if you've ever watched these ducks on a pond, and here they go and they fight, 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 fight. When they go away from each other, you'll watch them flap their wings really hard. And I always say they're flapping their wings to get the rest of that energy out, though they have to get rid of it. And we need to do that too. What I've found are creative ways for us to get flap our wings, essentially, like in relationships and parenting. Like, let's find a way to flap our wings so that we don't have to come at others simply because we're in this uncomfortably intense emotion.
I love that. And I love the analogy with the birds, because I remember when my kids were younger and I would take them to the pond, I would point out what the birds were doing. They're letting it go. Don't hold on to it all. Um,
Yes.
I think sometimes the intensity of anger, and for most of us, like I know growing up, there were some emotions that were okay for me to express as a child, and some that it was simply no. And anger was one of them. Like you were not allowed as a child to experience anger. Somehow anger was reserved for the adults around us, right?
Right.
So I think there's, for a lot of people, I think they will always raise their hands up quite easily to say, I would avoid conflict in order to avoid the anger. And in doing that, you avoid having some really important conversations that you need to have within the family environment. So let's talk about what's behind avoiding conflict and some ways that we do avoid conflict.
Well, I think the central thing is control. Like you just made a beautiful point. Like if I can avoid the anger in my mind, I somehow controlled that I didn't have to go into conflict. And I think that I'm controlling the situation, but I'm not. I'm actually creating more conflict. And
Mm.
so with children, I think one of the most important things we can do as parents is not make what they're feeling wrong or bad. For instance, like I'm going to go to fear, but I'll link it to anger. But as a parent, we never want to see our children hurt. So when they're scared, they might say, Mommy or Daddy, I'm scared. And we go, no, you're not. Wait a minute. We just taught them that their natural feeling of fear is now not associated with the word fear. So what are they supposed to call it now? And so we do it because probably out of love, we don't want them to be afraid. But what I teach and what yield theory is centered on is this. If my daughter would fall down when she was little and she would say she was in pain, I would look at her, I get down, first of all, make sure you're always down at that level if they're young children. And I would say to her, oh my goodness, that hurts so badly. And she'd say, yes. And I say, it feels like it's going to hurt forever, doesn't it? And she would say, no, it's actually starting to get better. Actually, I'm better. And she would pull herself out of it really quickly because my first move was never to tell her what she felt. My first move was to assess what she felt genuinely and then accept it and say, you're okay. Like if you feel scared, that's okay to feel. Feelings are there to teach us. And if we constantly tell children, you don't feel this way, I think we're teaching them not to associate words with what they actually mean.
Mm. That's beautiful. And a lot of times I think for many of us really, especially growing up in that paradigm where that was the norm, where your feelings were sort of dismissed, we still do it to ourselves as adults. So it comes up and you go, no, yeah, no, I'll deal with that later, or never. You push it away rather than flap your wings and let it go. I want to talk a little bit about what it takes from a mindset perspective to be able to shift uh, our our, our reaction. So rather than saying I will be comfortable to react in anger and make that about the other person, you made me angry. And really kind of own that we get the opportunity to respond. What sort of things do we need to do from a mental perspective to shift? You've got some beautiful analogies that I'd like you to share.
Well, I'm actually, that's so cool that you asked me this question, because here's what's happening. My life is kind of nonstop, and I work with the corrections in prisons. And actually today I'm working on, right before we started this interview, I'm working on an emergency protocol for when we're going to have inmates spending more time in their cells as we clean around this COVID stuff.
Mm.
And so I'm creating exercises for them. And the one I was working on right before we called was one specifically about exactly your question, which is our minds want to match our bodies. And so our minds, when we feel hungry, let's say we feel agitated, irritable, and how many of us, I love the raising your hand because you're so right. How many of us out there would say, when I was hungry, I was a little snappy with my loved one. I was a little agitated. Yeah, I'd have to put up both hands, you know? And so what happens is the part of our brain that experiences hunger and agitation and sleep and lack of sleep, or if we're tired, that's called the hypothalamus. And it's centered right in the middle of our limbic system, right in the middle of our emotions. And so we often think when I'm angry, it's you are causing me this anger. But what I teach with yield theory is this. Sure, definitely at times our thoughts do impact how we feel. I agree with that. But what I have found in my career for 22 years is this. Oftentimes our mind wants to match our body. So if my body feels agitated and irritable because I'm hungry, and like I said, we're in the middle of our limbic system every time we're hungry, every time we're overly tired, then what I do is I create a story to match. So I'll say, well, if I'm really hungry, it must be you. You looked at me wrong, and you've been looking at me wrong for 2 days now, and I never said anything about it. And now I'm creating this whole story. And really the secret is this: to be able to step outside yourself, call yourself on what you're experiencing. So I might say to my wife, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. We've been married 20 years. And thank you. It's beautiful. We have a beautiful, beautiful relationship. But one of the things we do is this. I might say, if I feel agitated or irritable, I'll say, listen, I'm starving. You look like a piece of pizza right now. So if I say anything that's short, it's because I'm hungry. And my wife is like the most beautiful Zen person in the world. So she's like super Zen. So she'll be like, that's cool. Just feel, she's like, I'll get you something to eat. And but what we've learned to do is we've learned to say to each other, it's okay to just say, listen, this body feels agitated, but I don't have to make up a story. So that exercise I was working on, and it's a new exercise for them in the prison system. And so I'm putting together a new program. I'm writing it today. And I said, the program is, I said, could you imagine if, and here's what I want you all to do, step away the next time you feel agitated and irritable. And instead of saying it's someone else, say, what might be going on inside this body? So my message to people is become the observer, like almost like a scientist. You look at it, you go, well, there's cortisol going on in here. There's adrenaline flowing. He's hungry. He's tired. This is really powerful. I wrote something in one of my books called Life Lessons. I wrote this story about, by all means, go to bed angry. So in other words, if you're overly tired and you're fighting because one or both of you is overly tired, again, hypothalamus, middle of your limbic system, say to each other, go, listen, I love you. I'm just really tired right now. And let's finish this in the morning. Yep. And truth is, most of the time you wake up in the morning, if you're still angry, you can keep fighting. But no, I never see that. 20 some years, I never see it. They go, yeah, thank goodness we didn't keep fighting.
You also talk about recognizing the power that you have, and you had a visual of showing almost like Iron Man having his power up little button here on the chest.
Yeah. I love that.
I wanted you to share that because this is one that I'm going to share with my kids, because I thought it was such an important visual to have that mind shift quite quickly.
Yes, yes. So I do tons of visuals. I just love them. I think we learn in diverse ways. And so
Yes.
I try to meet people where they are and say, let's find something creative. But let's say we'll take this phone here. If you can see, I mean, this box is could easier to show up on the. Okay, so let's say we take this little box. So let's say that this is my power. And here's the message. We all have a power about us, but our power is intangible, right? We don't know what it is. But what if, like Iron Man, the superhero, what if our power source was right here in the middle of our chest? Does that come through on the camera? Okay,
Yes.
so let's say this power source is right here. Well, if this is my power source and I go to fight the bad guy, I'm Iron Man, I'm fighting the bad guy. I'm not going to take off my power source and go, here you go, you can have this now. No, I'm going to hold on to my power. And so when we think about this in the context of our lives, in real practical reasons to do this, you can do this with your children for sure. If you're going to go up to, if someone's going to come up to you and they're mean, why would you take off your power and go, hey, here you go, you can have my power now? Instead, we got to hold on to it. So when people are mean or struggling, and they're mean for a reason, they're struggling, they're in pain, they're insecure. And so when we can look at them and we can say, listen, I appreciate that you want to give me a lot of anger right now, but I'm just not accepting it right now. So I appreciate that. I'm here for you, but I'm not going to take it. And one way to do that is to recognize, one way we give our power away is if someone says something to us, we react to it. So maybe you say to me, maybe you're mad at me, you say, Dr. Conte, you made me feel this way. Well, if I was going to give you my power, I would say, I did not, you did this. No, listen, I go, so it feels like I'm the one who did this to you. Tell me about that.
Mhm.
Now I'm holding on to my power. I'm listening to you. I can lead with love and compassion, but at the same time, I'm true to my own strength and my own power. And I cannot tell you, I work with people who are convicted of violent crimes. I work in very serious world, in a very painful world. And I can't tell you how many times people have done this. And then on the reverse, when I'm in prison and I'm in these maximum security prisons working with these people who have done really horrific things, and I teach them this and I'm one-on-one, I see tears coming down. Like, Doc, I gave my power away so many times in my life. Why didn't somebody teach me this when I was young? And so I say, that's why I'm out there. I try to give the world my messages every day. Like every day I wake up, I meditate, I picture stand in front of the world. I say a conscious statement on Twitter. I'm constantly saying, how do we get this message out there? Because too many people, we're giving away our power to people who don't even deserve it. I'll give you another analogy that can work with children or with anybody. You and me, we can use this. If somebody offered you and tried to give you a plate, let's say it's a bunch of crap, and they go to give you a plate, you're going to go, I'm not taking that. Like, whoa, get away from me. But yet, think about it. If somebody goes to hand you a plate of negativity, you go, oh, thank you, I'll take it. and now you're caught up in all this negativity, but that's not even what you wanted. So why accept it? So I was just thinking about putting a statement out this week. I just thought about this week, where I appreciate if you want to offer me your anger, unsolicited criticism, or negativity, but unfortunately right now I am not accepting it. Please keep it and come back to me later. I might not be accepting it then.
I love it. You say that anger begets anger. And I think this is so true in family relationships, but particularly in the parent child relationship. For a lot of parents, watching kids respond or react in an angry way just fires you up. And then you've got angry, yelling parents trying to tell the child, manage your anger while yelling. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on there and how do we break that down and break that cycle.
Well, I would love to share about mirror neurons, if you don't mind. I'd love to share because mirror neurons are really the key. So this is super, super cool. I think this is one of the most fascinating research in this field. So in the 1990s, these Italian neuroscientists, they were studying this macaque monkey. And what they found was this: if the monkey reached for a pen, say, there would be a specific set of neurons that would go off. And then if he reached for a pair of glasses in the same spot, a different set of neurons went off. And they found that they have neurons for everything. But then one day at lunch, when all good research happens, One of the researchers grabbed for a bag of peanuts for himself, and the monkey was sitting perfectly still. He wasn't moving. His brain was still hooked up. When the researcher reached for peanuts, the other researcher happened by luck to be looking at the monitor, and he noticed that in the monkey's brain, those neurons for peanuts went off. They discovered in that moment what is called mirror neurons, and they are the roots of vicarious learning. They are the roots of empathy. And here's why this is so profoundly important for you and for me and for everyone. Because when if someone comes to me in private practice and wants help with anxiety, I don't sit and start to tell them everything about anxiety. I make myself a place of peace, and they vibe off that. A lot of people come into my house. I have a very sacred meditation room that we use every single day. And it's a very sacred space. And people walk in and they say, I feel it. And I say, you can feel it because there's a lot of very peaceful energy in this room. And what happens is your mirror neurons are actually vibing off watching me be calm. And so when parents are yelling at their children, telling them to be calm, the children's mirror neurons are going off, going, I see, they're saying this, but they're doing this. And my brain is processing learning via behaviors. This is so important to know, because if we know that if we stay calm, our children will replicate that, that gives us more motivation to at least begin to search our own reasons for why we might get overly angry really quickly. I love that research. It's just amazing.
I absolutely love it as well. And what I love to point out about it for parents is that a lot of times we feel like we can save face. And so we can put a smile on when we feel sad or we're feeling anxious, and think that somehow our kids will miss it. And so it's really important for parents to recognize that their kids are picking up whether you want them to or not. So it's about becoming the best model you can be in all moments.
I've got an exercise for that. Watch this. So you and I both went for a job, and you got the job and I didn't get the job. We both really wanted it. So I come up to you and I say, hey, how you doing? You just got the job. You got it. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm great.
Did you get that? What happened really with that job?
I got the job.
Oh, I'm really happy for you.
Yeah.
And you look at my face when I say
feel it. Yeah.
And you see that when you see my face and I say, I'm really happy for you. And your mirror neurons pick up and go, he's not happy for me.
Not happy too. And I feel all of my body going, tone it down, because he's not happy.
This is perfect, because what happened right there, even in a role play, is that our brains pick up on the inauthenticity. So I might say I'm happy for you, but my body's exuding that I'm not. So if people can watch us and laugh at that, beautiful. Because now imagine you say to your children, it's fine, everything, it's fine. No, I'm not upset at all. Then they're seeing that and they're learning that. In the same way, our funny example, that's what's happening. And so it's really important for parents to learn that.
That was really funny for me, Christian, because I remember in my early parenting days when my kids were toddlers, I wasn't open at that stage to share all of my emotions. So I had emotions that I felt were too heavy and dark for my kids. And I would hide those, close my bedroom door, and I'd hide those away, get my smile back on, and then go back out to my kids. But obviously my kids would always ask, and I would paint that smile and go, no, Mom's fine. And so that reminded me of that experience and how futile it was.
Listen, this is the reason why. So I have a book on parenting called Zen Parent, Zen Child. And I point this out because it's probably one of my wife's favorite books, because I wrote that in about 3 days of straight meditation. Like I literally didn't move for like 3 days, and they're mostly a book of reflections. But the essence of that book is this: Zen Parent, Zen Child. If we want our children to be genuine, authentic, and understand their emotions, then we have to do that ourselves. And sometimes that says to our children, listen, honey, I'm going through a lot right now, and I have a lot of emotions. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes life brings you lots of emotions, and I'll be okay. There's a beginning, middle, and end to what I'm experiencing. But right now, it's really uncomfortable. Now, our children hear, wait a minute, my role model is saying there are going to be tough moments, but it's okay because there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's okay to experience whatever you're experiencing. And this is why I pound in these statements like emotions come and go, but actions cannot be undone. Because I really believe if I could reach in the heart of every listener right now and say, every viewer, and say, the one of the biggest, most important lessons you can learn is that every emotion will have a beginning, a middle, and end. It doesn't matter how intense it is. Remember, I specialize in people who did the most horrific things in the world, and all of their emotions, when they did that stuff, they're gone, right? They already did it. They beginning, middle, and end. And I want people to hear that because it brings comfort to know there's an end. One of the biggest challenges with anger is when we feel it, we go, it's never going to end. And we get these extreme words in our head. I have to do something extreme. But if we keep in our foreground that, yes, this is uncomfortable, it sucks right now, but there'll be a beginning, there'll be a middle, and there'll be an end. And I will get through this. Now we have an opportunity to step back and respond in a much more conscious way.
Beautiful. This is one that I pulled out from your book because I thought it's going to make some parents a little uncomfortable. So it says, if you're attached to having others behave in the way you expect or demand, you'll struggle to manage your anger. And I'll tell you, for most parents, they think the hardest challenge about parenting is my kids don't listen to me. So let's break this down. How do we help parents kind of shift the perspective so that they end up being better able to manage their anger?
Yeah, first of all, it's absolutely okay for your children not to listen to you. And when people hear that, they go, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Guess what? They're human beings with free will. It's my job to give a consequence. So if you choose not to listen to me, cool. There is a consequence that comes with that. I'll give you an example. When our daughter, the last consequence we even gave our daughter, she's 15. When she was 10, she was in the back seat and she said, my wife said, hey honey, it's time to put your phone down. And she said, well, can I just finish this game? And I said, I took the phone and I said, that's okay, honey. We'll get that back in 2 days. Next time mommy says it's time to put your phone down, it's time to put your phone down. Now she had a choice to say when she told her to put it down, no, I want to keep doing it. That's okay. That is a choice. There will be a consequence to that choice. And I don't need to be angry about that because my job is to teach. And this is what my wife and I have really, we thought about this, meditate about this long before we had a child. Our job is to teach. And so as we guiding her, what will teach her? So you're teaching us how to treat you. If you're saying I'm choosing not to listen, cool, but there's a consequence. And down the road, what you might learn is I don't want that consequence. And if that's okay, now you've learned your lesson, because that's what it really is. It's about teaching. So yes, it might strike parents when I say it's okay for your children not to listen to you, because it's only ego that says they will listen to me. Why? Are we omniscient? Are we omnipowerful? No, like our children have free will. Don't we want to teach them to be independent and question things and learn about that they have a place in the world? So yeah, this is I think that's really important to understand.
I love it. You also quote the Buddha in your book saying, anger will never be overcome by anger, but only by love. And so I wanted to kind of dive a little deeper into yield theory by first asking why the word yield.
So originally the concept was this. I had this vision out of a meditation back in 1998 where I kind of just saw this super clearly, which was this is kind of, imagine you're driving down the road and someone's going the wrong way. So you say, well, I got to stop them. So you get in your car and you drive and you smash them head on. Well, you stop them from going the wrong way, but you probably one or both of you got hurt.
Yeah.
But what if you, and this is just a hypothetical, but imagine you merge with them and you kind of yield, almost like at a yield sign, you yield with them. And now you're driving alongside them. So now you're alongside them. And again, this is hypothetical, but let's say over time they say, well, this is a long trip. gas money is expensive, jump in my car. So now you're in their car. Now you're seeing things out of their windshield. So now it's a little more clear. But even more than that, over time, maybe they trust you and they allow you to drive. And now you can steer them down a different path. That's the substance of yield theory. It is not yield as in, I give in and whatever you want to do, you can do, no consequences. No way. I work in maximum security prisons. Consequences are enormous, absolutely enormous. The difference is this: I'm not attached to the consequence. It is what it is. It's black and white. Like if I say it, it goes. There's not going to questions, there's not conversation. You can have questions, but at the end of the day, the consequence is the consequence, and I'm not giving in on that because I'm teaching you my own boundaries. I'm teaching you my own limits. And I'm teaching you, like, if I say this is what I'm setting out, but I don't need to be like, you're going to listen to me. No, choose not to if you want. But there are consequences if you choose not to. But yielding is saying, let's say somebody's angry and they come up to me. So many people have been sent to me because they're mandated to see me. Oh gosh, I got to go see this guy. I'm sentenced by the judge. I've already been to prison. Now I got to go see him and pay him. This is ridiculous. And what happens is when they came in like that, I could have said, well, I'm Dr. So-and-so. You need to sit down and listen to me. I would say, listen, be angry. You're sentenced to be here for a year. If you want to take the first 4 months and just be angry and say, I don't think I should be here, my goodness, I want you to do that. And don't even think about it. Like, I give permission for that. And we have a natural inclination to want to fight against what people tell us. And I use that. I say, like, I would get to a point where I get into a group and I'd say to guys, hey, listen, you're just new here. Don't even worry about participating today. This is probably all stupid stuff. Don't even worry about it. And then they go to speak later and I'll be like, don't even worry about it. And I'd get guys fighting to get in on the first group. They'd be like, let me tell you. Boom, let's jump in. And now everybody, because I don't have judgment for how people feel. This is back to what you and I first talked about. You're allowed to feel however you want to feel. And that includes any anger you have at me, because I know it's not really at me. Because a person who is in a place of complete peace isn't going to be angry at you. They're not in peace. They're struggling. And when they're struggling, I can look at that with compassion and say, my man or this lady, whoever you are, like, I can appreciate you're struggling because I'm a human being and we all struggle. And there are going to be moments when I need you to be my rock. And I happen to be in a place where I'm blessed to be a rock for you in this moment. But I know anything could happen and I might need you in a minute.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I feel like I need to breathe into that one, Christian. Let's touch a little bit on the 3 components of yield theory, and some of the things that we can begin practicing within our families from those components.
Yeah, so the 3 core actions. Here's the deal. It's so easy for us to question others, especially if we disagree with them. Yes, it's stupid. Da, 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 da. But how often do we question ourselves? And so we say, everyone, wherever I go, I speak all over the world. Wherever I go, people say, oh, I have more to learn. But then I go, well, what happens when someone disagrees with you? No, I'm right. Wait a minute. I thought you had more to learn. I thought you just said you had more to learn. Yes. So what I say is this. I do believe my whole life I have more to learn. And I don't just question others. I question my own ego. I question my own thoughts and ideas. And one day I sat back and I said, well, really, what is yield theory? Like, what do I actually do? Like, I stand at a prison cell and I talk to somebody, or I sit in a beautiful Zen office and I talk. What do I actually do? And I realized I do 3 actions. I listen to people. I validate them because, again, I'm trying to see it through their eyes. And then I explore options. Where do we go from here? Those are really the 3 things I do: listen, validate, and explore options. And I have a funny story because I was speaking at this mental health convention, and there were like 500 mental health specialists there. And a woman came up to me at the break, and she was very dressed up and very condescending. And I'm a t-shirt and jeans guy no matter where I am. But she looked at me very condescending and she said, that's your big thing? That's your big theory, 3 things? And I said, yeah, but if you think about it, all Bruce Lee ever did was move, block, and hit. And he did pretty well for himself. So. And really, these are the three things. You listen, you validate, you explore options, but just the way we all might be able to say the words move, block, and hit, but we can't quite do it the way Bruce Lee did it. We can say the words listen, validate, and explore options, but it's how we do it. And if we do it by really saying, and I don't just say if I walk a mile in someone's shoes, I say if I had your cognitive functioning, your brain functioning, if I had your affective range, your ability to experience the range of emotions, and if I had your life experiences, I really believe this, that I would have made every single decision you made. So now I have zero judgment. And I also know this, and this is powerful for parents, for relationships, for everything in life. Even if you and I came up with the greatest thing in the world that we could have done for 1 second ago, we can't go back and get that second. So all we can do is work from this moment forward. So I think if I had a superpower, I can't sing, I can't dance. If I had a superpower, is I literally don't judge people. I don't. I sit with people and I go, okay, whatever happened, one thing led to another in your life. You got to this moment. And I don't care about what you did. I care about what you do from this moment forward. And sometimes when people hear who I work with, you say, how do you don't care what they did? I'm not saying that. I'm saying I can't control what happened in the past. All I can do is control this moment forward. But what a lot of people do is they say, well, they shouldn't have done this. And you should tell them they shouldn't have. I get that, but that's cartoon world thinking. You shouldn't have done this. Well, they did do it. I don't want to spend time in the cartoon world. I got to work on the real world.
So beautiful. I think that the element of listening, even before you get to validate and being able to look for options, what I think trips people up about listening is that they get caught up in taking things personally. So my kids don't listen to me, or my kids say something mean. It's hard for me not to take that personally because it's personal. It's about me. It's my kids. Even if it's not directed at me and they've done something, it's clearly a reflection on my parenting because that's the way we think, right? Because I'm supposed to have taught you to do better, and I know I told you to do better, so it's on me. So, how do we make the shift from taking things personally to recognizing that people are just in their story so that we can hold that safe space?
Well, I say, well, I think one of the most powerful statements I try to share with others is this: people see your actions, not your intentions.
Mm.
However, we have a tendency to judge other people by their actions, but judge ourselves by our intentions. So when somebody does something to us, we say, how you did this to me. I can't, but you're malicious, you're purposeful. But when we hurt somebody, we go, well, I didn't mean to, so don't be angry. But when you really truly understand that, not just here, but here, you go, listen, somebody hurt me because they were stuck in darkness. They were stuck in a tough moment themselves. No one in a place of peace hurts others. It is only when we're struggling that we hurt others. And it's not enough to just know something. I was telling actually the men in this workbook that I'm doing right now, right before we talked, and that is this: knowledge is power if you use the knowledge. Knowledge itself
Mm.
is just beautiful sitting on a shelf. Like if I just had these books for looks, that would mean nothing. It's that I've read them, that I've integrated them, that I use them in my life, that I'm able to take the wisdom from many generations and share them with others. Knowledge by itself is just on a shelf, but knowledge that you use, that matters. So when we don't just say, oh, people see my actions, not my intentions, we live it. Now we go, you know what? Maybe I didn't fully communicate this lesson to my child. And guess what? That doesn't mean I'm a wrong or bad person. It just means as a teacher, I have to find a new way to say it. And the other thing with parenting is we demand that our children get it right away. And like, how many times have we messed up? How many times have people told me that there's probably better things I could be eating that are more healthy? And yet I'm 47 years old and I'm still eating stuff that's not healthy. I haven't gotten that lesson. I'm sure people could look at me and go, I told you that 30 years ago. Taking
Oh,
me a while.
I love it. If for families that are caught in habitual patterns of managing anger in unhealthy ways, whether that's the way we view our own anger, each other's anger, or just the way we react as opposed to making space for responding, what would be your advice in terms of turning a new page and creating a new sort of culture within our homes?
It's such a beautiful question. And I really believe that one of the biggest challenges that gets in the way when we turn over that new page is ego. So maybe someone watches this us on our conversation and they say they get inspired by what we're talking about and they go, okay, I'm gonna change. So they go home and they change, but then their spouse, their loved ones, they don't get it in 2 seconds. So they go, well, then screw that. I tried. You didn't want to. And I call that the foot in the water principle. When you start to do something, but you don't actually, if you want to swim in a lake, you can't just tap your toe in. You got to dive in. That's swimming in it. And so I say avoid the foot in the water principle and instead dive all in. Change because you want to change. Change because you know that's your path. It sits with the essence of who you are. And don't expect or demand that anyone else around you gets it. But know this, the more you live your message over time, people will feel it. People will see it. People will respond to it. Their mirror neurons on the most basic level will respond to it. Let's say you get inspired, which would be, I would feel honored if somebody watched this and they heard you and me talking and they said, I'm going to be less judgmental. Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. Guess what? If you are less judgmental and then the person doesn't get that right away, and then you're mad at them, now you're being judgmental. So me no judgmental goes, they go, well, you're probably judgmental because I've seen your face for 30 years and you make this face when you're judging. Then you have to go, you know what, maybe you're seeing something in me that I'm not seeing. Thank you. And so again, it's about being open to feedback constantly. And I
Mm.
think a good metaphor is this in sports, in the world of sports. So I'm a sports psychologist too, and I work with players, professional athletes, Olympians all over the world, some of the best athletes in their field. And what I see is this, we watch game film. So they see themselves on film. And when they watch it, they go, okay, I could have done this. I'm learning this. Next time, let me learn this. And it's not like, oh, I'm a terrible. No, they go, I need to learn. So I apply that principle to life. And I go, if I said something as a parent and I didn't say it effectively, I go, okay, let me learn to say it a little bit more effectively. I don't make the assumption that my daughter should get it every time I say something. I operate on the assumption that if I say it this way and it doesn't work, I'm going to try to say it differently and this way. I'll try to say it 1,000 different ways. Because, like I said, I'm still eating unhealthily. I haven't gotten that lesson yet. So I'm not going to demand that someone just magically gets whatever space I want them to get. Because sometimes it takes us a while to get lessons.
You talked there about saying things effectively. Do you have tips for how we express ourselves when we are in that angry space in a way that doesn't diminish or damage the relationships?
Yeah, I'd say I feel really uncomfortable right now. Like, I don't like how I feel. I feel angry. I don't like it. I want to scream. I want to yell. I want to say things right now, but I also know my emotions are going to come and go. And so I'm sure I'll work through this, but in this moment, like, I'm just furious. And sometimes that gives the space for your loved one to say, take some time to be furious. It's okay. Like, it's okay. Like, that's one of the best things my wife does. She'll be like, listen, however you feeling, you're supposed to be feeling like this. So go ahead and go into it. And she's a hypnotherapist, so she does a really good job at being able to just hold a space and be like, this is where you are. You're going to learn from it. If you're climbing up a mountain and your foot slips, now you know, cool, my foot slipped there. Don't put my foot there again. So why not just apply this to life? I'm angry. I feel this way. Let me step back. Okay. Now, people watching this, they might go, and I hear this. I hear this all the time. Oh, that's easy for you. You're an anger management specialist. So listen, it's easy because it's not easy. It's still a challenge, but I'm able to do it because I practiced it. We master what we practice. And if you practice being impulsive, you're going to master being impulsive. And if you want to reverse that and master patience, it's going to take time. And so you got to be able to step back and go, okay, it's going to take me some time. Let me give myself some time. I told you earlier, I don't play, I'm not musically inclined. My daughter's she's amazing, beautiful musician, phenomenal. I don't have a musical talent, but I knew when she had all this music talent, I always wanted to be doing what she's doing and be interested. So I started to learn guitar. And when I learn guitar for somebody like me who doesn't really understand music, I just go one thing at a time, and I repetition. And what I found now, 2 years later, I can start to play songs because I just do the repetition. So maybe someone out there listening isn't patient. What I want you to know, start with this. Understand you are not your thoughts. So if someone disagrees with your thoughts, they're not disagreeing with the essence of your soul. They're simply saying they don't agree with those thoughts in that moment. And the less attached you are to your thoughts, the easier it is for you to accept people having differences.
Okay. There's one more thing that I want to talk about because I think this is essential for us to look at how we view ourselves, our family members, our community, and even just people across the globe. And what you've written is there are no monsters among us, only people with stories. Can you touch on that one for us?
I believe that really profoundly. So I work with people who've done really awful, awful things. I don't even talk about what people have done because I don't think the world needs to hear about it. I don't even want that to be in the content of the universe. So I don't need to repeat that type of stuff. But when I see those people who've done those things that are people don't even make movies about it so bad. When I see those people and I listen to what happened to them, every single one of them had nightmare stories from themselves.
Mm.
And when we look at our own children, like our daughter has never missed a day of meditation since she was 6.5 years old. So she's grown up in an environment with two parents who say, it's okay to feel how you feel. Let's talk things out. So yes, she's phenomenal human being. I believe she's going to change the world. She's a million times better than we are. And she is, I promise you, she's about to change this world. And, but we've given her a lot of that. We've given her like these understanding. What about children who don't have that, who have parents who violate their basic need of safety, and they break that because they're angry? You didn't do what I said, so I'm going to hurt you. And now this child who grows up in this world and says, this person is supposed to take care of me. And we often forget as parents, we're giants to our toddlers. We're giants to them. And when we're angry, and this is our safe person. And why? Because I didn't clean my room. I didn't pick up my toy. And now I violated your sense that you can hurt me now because of this. And so when then we think about the extreme hurt, there aren't monsters among us. If I could tell you differently, I'd tell you differently. The fact is I go into places that most people don't even know exist, let alone will ever have access to going into. And I walk in freely. And when I see these people, I see every single one of them. Now, that being said, I don't make excuses for people, and there are certainly consequences. And some people need to be incarcerated the rest of their lives because if they get out, they're going to do real damage to a lot of people. And so I understand that. That's reality. But that's because they're in that incarceration doesn't mean I can't treat them with love and compassion. It doesn't mean I can't still give them my best. And the reason why I'm passionate about the work I do in the prison system is this. The majority of people who are incarcerated, they're going to get out one day. And if we don't teach them a new path, how can we expect that they're just going to magically have some new path in life? And just like parenting, like, okay, you're going this way, let's guide it. Let's go this way now. Let me share this other path. And my whole yield theory is about to do that. I can't come in and be like, you're living wrong. You need to follow this. I go, teach me about out of your windshield. Teach me out of your view. And I go with them. And then when they say they're angry, be angry. You're allowed to. I'm not taking apart. You're not angry at me. You don't even know me. And you made a great point because sometimes people say it is personal. They said my name. They said this, and they said it doesn't matter. It's only personal if you allow it to be personal.
Mhm.
If you see it through those divine eyes, understand that they're struggling. It's not personal. It's just not.
So beautiful. Tell us where we can find out more about your work.
Well, I do a YouTube channel and I love telling people about this because it's absolutely free. It's free to subscribe to it. If anything that I said today was helpful, I love for people to subscribe to my YouTube channel and share it with somebody. That's definitely a huge thing. I have books and things like that. Walking Through Anger is my newest book, and it's got like over 100 little Zen tales and things like that in it. And then if it's around parenting, Zen parent, Zen child. But honestly, I just appreciate watching this episode and us doing this together. And if you could check out the YouTube, it's great. But otherwise, I just genuinely wish everybody out there peace.
Beautiful. All right, last question. Tell us what it means to you to live an empowered life.
To me, I mean, I don't know that an unempowered life is a lot of fun to live. Like like to me, an empowered life is saying that I'm tapping into my potential. and I'm utilizing this divinity that I believe is within all of us. And so I believe that we can tap into this thing that is amazing. Like I use the analogy of fingers all the time. Like if this finger said, "Oh, you're so different over here," like, and then you realize, wait a minute, we're all the same hand. And when you can tap into that divinity and recognize that, it's beautiful. Like you focus on something that is so much bigger than your ego, than the present moment, than yourself, and you go, wait a minute, I'm connected to something that is far grander. And I think one of the greatest things we can do is kind of just look up, look at the stars, look at how big this universe is. Because when we get encapsulated by that big stuff, we're no longer inhibited by all this little stuff that gets in the way. And we are a part of all that big stuff too, because this hand doesn't just relate to us as human beings. I think it relates to the universe. That might just be a belief system, but to me, it's a really beautiful belief system, and it certainly helps me find peace.
That's beautiful. Christian, thank you so much for joining us today and helping us all put anger in a different perspective.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. I feel honored that you reached out, that we are able to have this conversation, and I'll be open to talk to you again in the future. Thank you for the work you're doing, because you're obviously spreading a lot of love to a lot of people, and I think that's phenomenal. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Empowered Kids TV. I'd like you to do us two favors. If this is your first time here, be sure to subscribe and press the bell icon so we can notify you of upcoming episodes and you don't miss any of our amazing programs. And if you found value, please share it. It still takes a village. So share this with your family and friends. As we always say here at Empowered Kids TV, you're just one connection away. With love and gratitude, empowerers. Until next time.